Hey, what's going on, fam? So another video, obviously last video y'all heard me talk about how black people are justified in rioting across the nation and how we should not fall for anti-black talking points that make us stop rioting. But in this video I want to talk about another side of the coin. Even though if it is black people rioting, I support it. Let me say this, fam. A lot of times it's not black people that are out there protesting and rioting. If y'all know, fam, those of you who may have been watching my channels for years, even though I know most of you haven't, y'all can go back on my channel from videos that are 3 and 4 years old. I made videos called "The Culture of Lies," and I talked about how white supremacists go above and beyond to lie on black people. How white people will do things like shoot themselves and say a black person did it in order to promote anti-black racism. This is how dedicated white supremacists are, which black people don't understand. That white supremacists will go out and commit crimes or even do harm to themselves and do damage to their own property in order to say a black person did it. In those videos, I talked about how white supremacists have vandalized their own property, vandalized their own cars, burned down their own houses, sprayed graffiti on their own houses, Black Lives Matter graffiti on their own houses, in order to say that there are roving gangs of black people targeting white people in order to further promote anti-black racism and further justify white supremacists harming black people by showing how much of a quote-unquote danger we are to white people by, like I said, either shooting themselves or vandalizing their own vehicles or their own houses. That comes into play in an example now, fam, because a lot of these riots, white people are behind these. I talked about how white supremacists go online and go out of their way to pretend to be black people and will do things like, and if I haven't talked about this before, I'm talking about it now. White supremacists will even go online and make a fake black person account and pretend to be a black person in order to say things like, I love raping white women, in order to be able to then screen cap that fake black account and say, see, look, black men just sit up dreaming about raping white women. All these random tweets about of a so-called quote-unquote black person, a random black dude just tweeting on Twitter, where the white girls to rape at, like stupid shit, like shit that's just completely black people don't say. Ooh, I need me a white woman to rape. Like that, like that's the type of stuff that black people say. But that's the kind of things that white supremacists tell themselves that black people say, and that black men sit around thinking and talking about, and it's actually a normal, regular conversation. But because they know that it's not actually happening, then they have to go out and make their white supremacist lie true. And the white supremacists have a history of this. This is just like back in the days, we're talking about these modern day lynchings. Back in the day, what was always the justification for lynching? A lot of times made up crimes. Oh, you raped a white woman. Oh, you did this. So white supremacists sit up and tell each other that black people have these extremist racial traits. And then because they know they're not true, they go out and make them true by accusing you of doing them anyway, even though you didn't do them. And nowadays, with the age of technology, they go out and fabricate proof that you did it. It's just like with cops planting drugs on black people. They sit up here and promote you as criminal, and then they make it true by framing you for crimes and accusing you of crimes all the time that you didn't do. That's why the number one race of people that end up getting freed by projects like the Innocence Project, which goes out to get wrongful convictions dismissed and thrown out, which I commend that organization. But there's a reason why organizations like that, the people that they end up freeing the most are black people. Because this is a part of the culture of white supremacy. And again, go back and watch my Culture of Lies videos to see that I've been talking about this for a while. And the reason why this matters is because, family, the white supremacists are going out here and they are looting. This is why black people have to be very careful about allowing white supremacists among us. I remember back in the day, fam, I was in South Carolina with a protest after what happened with Dylan Roof. And I got into an argument with black people that were some of the people that were very involved in coordinating the protest, because they were bringing in these white people and people who I knew to be like alt-white and white supremacist type of people in here to protest with us. And some of those people, they're still as far as I know, linked up and quote unquote cool with some of these white supremacists down there in South Carolina. And guess what? And I argue with them about bringing them on. And then guess what? And these like, oh, it's not that serious. We gotta have allies. We gotta blah 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 blah. Right? We gotta blah blah blah. Like they made all the coon excuses about how we have to have allies and how we can't be hateful and we have to do it this way to make our message effective and all of this stuff. Right? But guess what? As soon as those white supremacists got in the mix, even though I argued with these people about not allowing these white supremacists in the mix, guess what? The conversation changed from justice to hugging and forgiveness. And what about black on black crime? Like the black activists started screaming at black during a Dylan Roof protest. People like Hashim Nzinga, who's a leader of the new Black Panther Party, and I strongly suspect him to be an agent, and Malik Shabazz, who I strongly suspect to be agents. These people turned the conversation, a Dylan Roof protest conversation, into a what about black on black crime conversation. And I knew that type of stuff would happen as soon as white supremacists started getting in the mix. And it's the same thing with these protests now. You letting these white supremacists get into the mix. Either A, they want to turn it into a no justice, no peace protest where nothing is happening, or B, they're out there to start looting and committing crimes themselves so that they can then blame black people and then further promote that as a proof of how criminal and savage black people are by nature. And this is why white supremacists are justified in harming us. We've seen videos of that woman with the wheelchair who can walk, who was out there trying to stab black people. And then when they retaliated against her, she played victim. We've seen pictures of that cop. And this is not the first protest. We've seen it in other protests where cops are out there breaking windows and looting stores in order to say that so that they can then justify going out there and harming black protesters under the guise that they're criminals and stealing from stores and burning down property. So even though my last video, fam, was saying that it's justified if it is black people that are out there rioting, which some of it is black people, because the price needs to be too high for white supremacists. Understand that this isn't all black people. A lot of this is white people. A lot of this is just plain old opportunistic white people who aren't necessarily out there with an agenda except to just have an opportunity to steal. But then there are also white people who are out there doing this shit intentionally in order to blame black people for it, and are starting these riots and are starting the vandalization and looting intentionally in order to justify harming black people. And then there are the black people who are out there, the white people, who are out there just to misdirect and divert the energy into peaceful kumbaya protesting, which is totally ineffective and actually detrimental to black people because it wastes their time and energy that could be used on dismantling and damaging white supremacy. That was actually first intended to be used on dismantling and damaging white supremacy. It ends up getting misdirected into useless kumbaya BS. So anyway, fam, and then the last thing I want to say too, just one last side note. Also, one last talking points about these riots, fam. Remember, don't forget, white people protest all the time. Or not protest, but riot. First of all, they do protest like they do against the lockdowns, and they show up in the Capitol with guns. But not only do they protest, they riot. But they riot over stupid shit like sports games. We've seen white people riot on beaches just because a beach got closed. Or riot because their hockey team or football team lost and destroy entire cities and loot. We've seen that before because their college sports team lost. So black people loot and riot over injustice, and white supremacists loot and riot because their college basketball team lost in the Final Four. Or won. These white supremacists loot and riot when their teams win as celebration. So I don't want to hear no fake outrage about black people looting. But then again, like I said, with a lot of this, it's not even black people. It's white people who are taking the opportunity to loot, riot, and steal. It's white people who are out here loot, rioting, and stealing in order to blame it on black people. But anyway, fam, that's another video. Like, share, subscribe, and peace.